Well, good Saturday afternoon, friends. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Please hit the subscribe button. Show a brother some love. Give us a like here because we're trying to put in the work to bring you all the news that is the Dallas Cowboys. And in a little bit, I'm actually going to be having my buddy Stuart Morrison, who is a fantasy football, I keep saying expert. He said he's just a guy that knows a guy who has a voodoo doll and loves fantasy football. However, he's definitely an expert in comparison to me. And we're going to be doing some fantasy football for dummies. Raise your hand if you're a dummy. That's me. I'm a dummy that's going to try and learn something about fantasy football. Now, I basically told him, I want you to think of me as an alien that was dropped off and knows nothing about fantasy football, and you want to teach me everything about it and make me love it. And if he can do that for me, well, I tell you what, he'll be able to do all kinds of stuff for you. Now, I've had some people who have said that the music is too loud. I'm trying to adjust it a little bit, and this is going to be kind of a first because I built this outdoor studio because I love being outside, even though it's like 92 degrees outside. But with the ceiling fans and things, it's not bad. What I'm really curious about is my next door neighbor over here is actually cutting the grass as we speak, and I can hear it actually pretty loud. So I don't know if you guys can hear that. And then my neighbor over here, he's got a bush hog, and he's cutting down all the brush that's in the back there. And then there's them damn cicadas that are going off. So I'm curious to see, they say these microphones only work if you're up close to them, that you literally have to eat the mic or else you don't hear it. So this is kind of a test, but as I was getting set up for Stuart Morrison and our fantasy football for dummies, I see my defensive coordinator, Dan the Man Quinn, that they had a press conference, and I was actually very curious about everything that he has to say about the defense and where we stand. I feel like he's just like sitting over my shoulder here. He's got a blank stare, doesn't he? Dan, hey, Dan, hey, Dan. All right, let's see what he has to say about his defense.
A chance with Parsons and Joseph and some of the other rookies have had a chance to see them and work in with the veterans. What are your impressions about some of the guys in that class, or anything you've seen to this point that stands out?
For sure, I've been impressed by this crew. Of the 8 draft picks and I think 3 free agents that we signed, and I think probably the thing that jumped out to me was the speed of the group. Whether it be in the secondary or at linebacker, you could just really feel that speed, from the perimeter guys. On the inside guys, it's a mature group that we added to the defensive line. Obviously, you feel the size of Bohanna and his strength. Maybe not as much because it's more of a passing camp, but I have been impressed by Golston, Odigizua. Those are guys we're trying to feature into some pass rushing roles. So I'd say of the group of 11, speed, that jumped out to me. And then for the big guys, let's continue to develop and see what we have with Odigizua and Golston. But those two inside have certainly jumped out to me as pass rush.
With Micah, how do you balance wanting to tap into his versatility to be a linebacker and an edge rusher, along with whatever else role, and not overloading him conceptually as he gets acclimated to the NFL and the playbook?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, one, it starts with communication and, making sure that we don't, put our toe into that water where it's too much. So I think going through the installs, making sure there's a clear vision of not only, what to do, but how to play it. And I think for all players, it's fairly easy to get to this is what I do, but then how to play the techniques, that's where it all comes to life. So we're trying to put onto Micah and to the other players and find out what they do best. And once we know that, we can continue to give him those kind of calls over and over again. The good news for him is the pass rushing part for him, he's really picked up where he left off. He really has good speed off the edge. So that part of the game is intact. Now we're working a lot of behind the ball things, man-to-man, playing zone, blitzing from off the ball, those kind of things that we can feature him in the things that he does best. But not just limited to him, but for the other guys too. I'm really trying to stay present with those 11 players and make sure I can really learn what they do best. And the only way you do that is by getting in practice and seeing them do things, make mistakes going full speed. And then once it happens, you can almost hear the click of somebody in their speed and their playmaking. So I'm always making notes to say, okay, this would be a good call for him. This would be where we can feature this player. So it's been a fun process for me so far.
Dan, what have been your impressions of Vander Esch here so far, and why is the weak side spot a good fit for him in your scheme?
Yeah, I'd say, well, I've been really impressed, not just from the OTA time, but every once in a while you can just see a person that's on a mission. And I think that's what I've seen from Leighton from the time I arrived. To see him, you could just feel the energy and intensity that he was putting into his workouts to change his body, to get strong as he could. Then from then on, the questions, he was, in the meetings, you could feel the urgency to go. And I guess, just a quick story for him, the tackling, like, hey, I want to improve on this spot, and the work that we did and the techniques to do it. Like, it's been so impressive to see him find, little things to work on over and over again to complete his game. He's been very impressive to me so far. As far as the weak side goes, it's just the length that he has. He can play behind a 3 technique, like a big guy like Nev, who can, get onto the block and allows him to scrape and run fast. So those are just a few of the things that he's done. But from the linebacker side, with both Leighton and with Jalen, I've been super impressed with these guys from their leadership. One of the words that comes to mind for me for those two has been selfless. And that part, taking the new guys under their wing, this is how we do it, this is where we go, their camaraderie, that chemistry. Not every team has that, and it certainly don't have it at every group that has a lot of competition. But to see that from guys like them and Keanu O'Neal, it's been very impressive to see what kind of teammates those guys are to the new players, a guy like Jabril and Micah, who are entering into the NFL for the first time. And I think if you look back and ask people, what would you have paid to have somebody, take you under your wing and help you on your first year, most everybody would say just about anything. And so to see a guy like Jalen and Leighton and Keanu take some of these younger players under their, their guidance and coaching them when we're not, I think it shows a lot of who they are. And that's why I thought selfless comes to mind for those guys, thinking of themselves less. That came to mind with Jalen and Leighton so far.
Next.
Was his length that you're talking about kind of on display with that interception, the ground that he was able to cover to make that interception?
It was, and
yeah,
and I'm glad that you guys brought that play up, because I thought it did illustrate that. Because when you're in a trailing position and you're chasing somebody, so to have the ability to close and then reach across the ball to go make a play, if you don't have great length, you don't get to do that play. So
they love their length.
On the edges of the field and on the perimeter and on the sideline, those are really a lot of times when these length moments show up. And I think that was an excellent example of why Leighton, not only does he have speed to cover ground, but he also has the length to go make the play. What a big difference between knocking the ball down and coming up with the interception there. And so having the ability to make the impact play in the moment, that's a big deal. And I've been impressed by one of the things that Mike does at practice is the emphasis on the ball drills and catching. And so he talks it, but then he lives it. You see the guys post-practice, pre-practice, and the ball drills. So as a defensive coach, you can imagine how happy that made me when I saw all the time and attention devoted to getting the ball. And it's plays like that it really showed up.
And what are your impressions of Randy Gregory now that you've had a chance to work with him here a little bit? And what do you envision him being able to do for you defensively in this season?
For sure. I tell you, I was so impressed by him. I've had my eye on Randy for a long time. In fact, I went out to Lincoln, during the draft process and had a chance to work him out at school, and we bonded that time to go. And I thought, man, I just so badly wanted to coach him because I saw all the traits, all the speed, and he's got this unique ability to go full speed, and he can bend on the edge. He's got such flexibility to bend. So when I had the chance to get here, he was one of the first people I wanted to get into contact with, and we hit it off immediately because we had a relationship from, when I went out to Nebraska to see him. During that time, what I've seen from him is really you know, the physicality, like he just looks so much different. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger than he's ever been, and that really translated onto the field. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing he and D-Law and how that works together, along with, you know, the emergence of a Gallimore. We brought a Digazua in, Golston, others that can rotate and rush inside. Basham, you know, has been another addition for that. But to get back to it, I've been super impressed by Randy. His mindset, his attitude, his willingness to go for it. He wants it straight up. Hey, this is how we got to do it. It's been super impressive to see.
How do you draw that balance when you put a staff together, whether as a head coach or coordinator, bringing in guys that you're familiar with and retaining guys who you don't know as well?
Well, I think overall there's probably, I don't know, what, 11, maybe 6 veterans, so probably 17 new players defensively, something along those lines, and 3 new coaches, you know, so, you know, I was one of the new coaches coming in along with Adden Durday and Joe Witt, and so joining forces with Al and George and the guys. So there was a lot of newness here, but on the coaching side, where Adden and Joe can fill in some of the blanks, hey, this, you know, behind the scenes, this is what Dan's thinking here, this is important, they can help that. Well, that's no different on the player side when there's some people that have some familiarity with the system, have some familiarity, you know, that might be a KZ or a Neal, or quite honestly, other players that may have played on other teams that I've had the chance to coach with. So having that bond and the connection, it helps a lot, because it's not just one message. The best teams that I've been a part of, it's collectively standards and effort and responsibilities and roles. And now we have a real appreciation of what certain guys can do. And that's what happens on the practice field. You're seeing plays being made by a guy like Leighton to know, hey, that's one of the things that he does really well. You saw it with Neal the other day, his ability to break on the ball. I saw that also with Jalen Smith. I've seen Basham come off the edge, Randy Gregory come off the edge, Gallimore. So now that you're seeing some guys' roles start to emerge and develop, that's where some of the respect comes in, because you're seeing somebody really work at one thing that they can do better than anyone. Think, you know, we're all kind of following the NBA right now, but for the catch and shoot player who can, you know, nail a 3 in today's NBA, that's a really big deal, and they're excellent at it. Well, there's some players on defense have some specific roles. I've got to be able to climb on the edge and go for it like a Bradley and I, and inside a Quinton Bohanna to say, hey, this has to go down in the run game, or a Brent Urban who's got such great, you know, length and size to get guys locked out. So all of the little roles that you're starting to see, it's not just with the rookies. I'm doing that with the veterans as well. And they're really putting in work. I've been very impressed by the group up to date. We've got a long way to go. Trust me, I'm by no means saying we have done much, but we're, you know, 6 practices in. But in those 6 practices, some standards, some things that we want to get done, some identity things as a defense, that part's coming together. And like I said, we've got a long way to go, but I'm very encouraged by what I've seen.
We didn't see Kelvin Joseph on the practice field yesterday. Where is he at right now?
Yeah, I think you know, we held Kelv out today, but I'm sure Mike can address you know, those ones on the misses. But yeah, Kelvin's off to a good start with us, and you know, all looks good.
He only played 15 games in college. Does that lack of experience leading up to the NFL carry some relevance as he, you know, competes to factor in potentially into the starting lineup against, you know, there's a competition forming there with a veteran in Anthony Brown. Sure. How does that landscape look like?
Yeah, it's a great question, you know, and talking about, and it's not just with him, but at a corner, say like his, you know, limited time, you know, and real reps in the game. You're right. It's, you know, it's not as high, but I would say the good news is, you know, for him during his, you know, short time at LSU, also getting a chance to guard really good players and go battle in practice to go, and then over to Kentucky to get, you know, real starting experience in the SEC. That certainly helps. But as you know, the transition to the NFL, it's not one size fits all. What I can tell you, I've been impressed by his work. I've seen the speed, the quickness. So we're trying to get through those things fast. The nice part is when you play for, you know, defense here, you get a chance to guard some pretty good guys over on the other side. So he'll be tested, you know, here in practice and of course in training camp. And I couldn't think of a stronger group, you know, for him to test and try things. Like at practice, it's kind of where we make us. And I want to stay on the line of scrimmage as long as I can. I can use an offhand jam. I can play this player from off. And so having some of that information is important. And that's why, like, having a guy like Al Harris in your hip pocket, it's a great thing for a guy like Kelvin.
Interesting.
Dan, we're hearing your players a lot talk during the play, during the pre-snap reads and things like that. How important is that communication from all three levels as you guys are building this thing to know that you know everybody's gonna be on the same page by the time the ball is snapped and everybody can just play?
Yeah, there's pre-snap communication and post-snap communication, and the best of the best teams have both, and it's really loud and really in control. And here's why it can really function: not just doing your job, but knowing, you know, hey, this call, these are the things that we do. But it can also tell some alerts about the offense and what they likely could do by a split or a formation or a back set or a stance of an offensive lineman. So once you're able to get into those triggers, you can almost be ready to play that play. Now, if they do something else, that's okay. But the amount and the volume and the intensity of the communication, it's critical, because if you're going to take a shot, you better have all the information that you needed to go make that play. Because what you don't want to do is, I thought it was this and I just took a shot. Like, that's BS. That's not playing good, sound, technique football. So for us, we're going to work like crazy to get that part of our game in order. It's good that we have some, you know, crowd noise there. There has to be hand signals, so there's verbal, nonverbal. And what's nice to see with this group is they're having a blast coming to work together. And in the locker room, in the meetings, out in the practice field, you see that connection joining and happening as it's going. So the communication pre and post snap, it's not there yet, but we're making progress on it for sure.
Yeah, speaking to that, there was a lot of frustration on this defensive group a year ago. Have you noticed or kind of seen an appreciation for them getting back to a scheme that it seems like many of these guys are saying they're a lot more comfortable in, what you tend to teach and what you like to coach?
You know, I can't speak, you know, from the past. I can only speak from where we're at. And I would say the communication from where we started to where we're at today, it's improving. But there's a whole nother level to get to on the communication. But I can only speak really, you know, on the group that I've been with, you know, when we started, you know, how many ever weeks ago, 6-7 weeks ago to get rolling. But it has been increasing. I'm hopeful there's another lap to go because, as we said, kind of the best of the best, man, it has to be there all the time, bringing it and talking pre and post. But as far as, you know, from last year, I just really tried to stay present with the guys and just say, let me learn them in my own space and get going on them from this spot. Just because I wasn't here. I had my own frustrations to worry about and talk through. So
yeah.
I certainly, you know, came in ready to go and attack, you know, what our 2021 defense would look like.
Dan, yesterday Mike McCarthy was talking about Ben McAdoo helping not only Kellen but you as well. How do you see that going down with Ben being around as a consultant this year?
Well, if I can have just some of the impact that Mike's had on me so far, it would be super valuable for me. So having, you know, a guy like Mike who can talk about what the offense is thinking on a certain play or a certain concept, it allows me to look at something from a different perspective. And I've really appreciated that from him, you know, whether it's in meetings or after practice, you know, hey, have you thought about this? And the quarterback's looking this way. We do some drills at practice that I haven't done before that's totally, you know, designed by him. And that's been a big deal for me defensively to learn some new things, how, you know, QB's looking at a different situation. So not just the players are learning, I have too. And so the fact that Ben's been a part of that system with Mike, can look at it from, you know, from the offensive side, that's what I hope to get. You know, basically I want them to look at us and how they would try to attack. I don't want them involved on the self-scout defensively. I want to say, how would you go after us based on what you've seen? And so that's what I've met with Ben about. And but Mike kind of gives me that on a regular basis. But I'm looking forward to doing that with Ben as we get during the season.
Next question.
All right. I know it came to the attention yesterday. One more thing before I forgot. I think Basham asked, you know, a question, so I wanted to maybe set the record straight. My wife thinks I'm in great shape, and yes, that is the way that I coach. So you guys have a good weekend.
Okay, because they were asking Basham about him being very hands-on, and Basham was kind of like, well, I don't know if he's not getting any love at home or something like that, or not, or if that's just the way he is, very hands-on. So we got a little bit of humor there. A couple of things that I actually liked hearing. One thing that, you know, I can't guarantee that we're going to stop anybody, but I can guarantee you that these guys are going to be playing fast and physical, that they're going to be going all out. I love that he's saying that Vander Esch is a man on a mission right now. basically looking at this as an opportunity as opposed to a demotion with them bringing in the other guys. They're doing a lot of talking, pre-snap talking and things, making sure everybody's on the same page and trying to bring the young guys up to speed. And that they have roles for players that basically I think that this isn't going to be you're the starter at defensive tackle and you're never coming off. This is going to be a lot of role playing and things, and that's why you have a Vander Esch and you have, which they may be putting on the weak side more times than not, as he pointed out here, that you got a Jalen Smith, that you have multifaceted players that you can use to try and match up for different situations and different teams. Clearly, if you're playing Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be different than if you're playing Daniel Jones. You're going to want to attack differently in each of those situations. And I think they're trying to develop enough players that, one game, one player might get a ton of reps. Another game, he may not get hardly any at all. It'll be interesting to see the evolution of this defense. And hopefully the sound quality wasn't too bad with everybody doing what they're doing. I've got an AC unit that's running over here right now. I've got the 2 ceiling fans, and I think the lawnmowers have stopped for the moment. But be sure to check out Fantasy Football for Dummies. And don't forget, I also have another channel. I'm slowly getting all of the videos off of my original Woodboard channel and put on over to Jobu's Day Job Homes. And if you like my woodworking and things, you want to know more about the red brick house, I have about 10 videos of the red brick house from when I first got it 4 years ago and the ups and downs and where we got started, because hopefully in about another month we'll actually be back on working on that. But you know the deal. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Jobu Sports Report. I'll see you later.